Jay.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, on our UK tour. We are kind of we're in the Irish band right now, an Irish band, My Bloody Valentine, Loveless. This is kind of a big deal of an album. It was one of, I think, two revolutionary albums in 1991, this being the Irish or UK counterpart to Across the Sea revolutionary pair to Nirvana's Nevermind, which, these two albums really just changed how music was seen and viewed and
really set up the music scene for the 90s and beyond, and what's happening still today.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right,
dive into this.
Well, yeah, I mean, after the album that came out before this one, Isn't Anything, kind of put them on the map. And then, this one was anticipated. I mean, in 1991, I don't think these guys were the biggest band ever. But then this album came out, and it was one of those that wasn't entirely appreciated at the time. And I know, there's these stories about how they almost put their record label out of business because they used all their money making this album because Kevin Shields was so picky about the sound.
Right, they went through a bunch of different producers.
Yeah, it's just like trying to find the one that matched their vision for this, because it's such a crazy sound and something that had never been done before and really hasn't been done since. And that's what makes this album so powerful and such a testament. Now, there's something I got to get out of the way right now, and it's kind of an argument of definitions, but it's important to think about. Many people would say that this is one of the greatest albums of all time. And honestly, I'm not going to argue with that. But, the whole greatest album of all time thing is arguable. That's arguable, but what is not arguable is that this is one of the most important albums of all time. And there is a big difference there, because how good something is purely opinion. It's all subjective, but you cannot deny the impact that this album has had on music. Influencing, the underground of the 90s, bands like Dinosaur Jr., and even today, bands like Silver Sun Pickups and Mew and Pains of Being Pure at Heart, and even more popular bands in the 90s like Smashing Pumpkins, Radiohead, Nine Inch Nails, have all come out and said that this album was huge to them. And if you really want to deny how big all those bands are to music today, it all comes back to this, and you can't argue against it.
It's a foundation album.
Exactly. It set the stage. And the reason it did that is two things in my mind, and that's the songwriting and the production. The songwriting throughout is just stellar. In the vocal melodies, the guitar melodies and performance, the way it all works together, these huge washes of guitar, which actually I would argue the album artwork even helps to enhance, because it's just this pink fuzzy close-up guitar image, which really kind of describes the sound. But from there, the songwriting, great throughout.
Not horribly complex. And actually, one thing that I noticed is that they're, especially in the middle of the album, a lot of the songs are structured very similarly. Yeah. But because of the unique approach to the sound, it never gets stale. And
the melodies are just so endearing. They just really hit you. At least they hit me. But then the production takes it to the next level, because it makes it really noisy and shoegazy and thick. It almost makes it difficult to listen to the first time you put it on, because you're not ready for it. And then the more you listen to it and get past that, you realize that this album couldn't have been done any other way. Because if it was just the production with not all that great songwriting, it would have been a memorable album, but it wouldn't have had an impact. And vice versa. If the songwriting had been so great, but it had just been produced like a regular, late 80s or early 90s album, it wouldn't have made as much of an impact. But that combination makes this album timeless.
And I also think that one of the things that helped make this album so revolutionary is just how they approached it. I think the care and the direction and the stories that you hear about them going through 15 different producers and almost bankrupting their record company, I think really come out in the album, because it's evident that they took so much care in presenting this in a form that the listener can really digest it. This is an album. And they structured it to be so. But not only that, they structured it in a way to be kind of this vessel that delivers their new approach to music that they wanted to have the world, exposed to. I think that one testament that I really like about this album is the opening and closing tracks, Only Shallow and Soon, respectively. They're my two track picks on this album. Very, very strong songs. I think insipid. They get stuck in your head, and Soon kept me up all night long one night this past week. And I think that having capstones on either end of the album, and then having a lot of really consistent material that kind of takes the song and like flexes the sound's muscle in between. It was a really good way to approach this album. It's a really fluid listen, not too long, not too short, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But it overall is just a really nice play. It's a unique listen, and it's cool because you see, just a lot of other artists are just dripping with influence from My Bloody Valentine, but to actually hear all of this in one place, and it just makes so much sense. It's just like a logical piece of the puzzle that now I'm fully exposed to. So it was really fun to review this one. Tom, I'm sitting around an 86 for this, and I think with time I'll like this album even more. It's just, I've only begun to start loving this thing. So
I'm gonna give it a 94. I've actually really liked this album for a long time, but listening to it from a reviewing standpoint, knowing that I was gonna be talking about it on camera, really gave me a different appreciation for it.
Cool. What do you guys think? Is this one of your favorite albums of all time? And what do you think about Tom's hypothesis of comparing the greatest album of all time, or one of the greatest albums of all time, to one of the most impactful or influential albums? Leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, as always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. That's where we do a lot of our conversing with our fans and get requests and all that stuff. So please do all those things and get the conversation started. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.